The preacher outlawed weapons in his peaceful town. So when a stranger rolled in dragging a coffin, no one asked what was inside until it was far too late. The desert shimmered under the relentless sun, baking the small town of Harmony. Dust devils danced across the parched earth, the only disturbances in an otherwise tranquil scene. Harmony was an oasis of peace, a testament to the unwavering faith of its people and the gentle guidance of its preacher, Samuel. Samuel believed in the power of forgiveness and nonviolence. He had led Harmony for 15 years, instilling a deep-seated aversion to weapons. No guns hung above fireplaces, no knives were strapped to thighs. The town's only defenses were its sturdy walls and the unwavering belief in turning the other cheek. Harmony was a place where disputes were settled with words and differences were bridged with understanding. Children played freely in the dusty streets, their laughter echoing through the quiet town. Farmers tended to their crops, coaxing life from the arid land. Life in Harmony was simple, predictable, and profoundly peaceful. Everyone knew everyone, and trust was the bedrock of their community. This peaceful existence, however, was about to be shattered. Something was coming to Harmony, something that would test the very foundations of their beliefs, something dark and heavy, dragging a secret behind it. The first sign was the dust cloud on the horizon, a swirling vortex that grew steadily larger. It was different from the playful dust devils. This was purposeful, driven. Then the figure emerged, slowly taking shape against the harsh sunlight. He was tall and lean, his face etched with scars that spoke of a life lived hard. He wore a worn duster coat that concealed most of his frame, but his eyes, dark and piercing, missed nothing. But it wasn't the stranger himself that drew the most attention. It was what he was dragging behind him, a heavy, dark wood coffin. The coffin was battered and scarred like its owner and bound with thick iron bands. It scraped along the ground, a low, mournful sound that seemed to echo through the silent town. He moved with a quiet determination, never looking up, never acknowledging the stares of the townsfolk who had gathered to watch his approach. He simply continued his slow, deliberate march toward the center of Harmony, the coffin his constant companion, a silent promise of something unknown and unsettling. The air grew thick with apprehension. The children stopped playing and the farmers paused in their work, their eyes fixed on the approaching figure and the mystery he dragged behind him. Samuel watched the stranger approach, his heart a mixture of concern and curiosity. The unease radiating from the townsfolk was palpable, a tangible thing in the dry air. He stepped forward, his face open and welcoming despite the prickle of apprehension he felt. "Welcome to Harmony," Samuel said, his voice calm and steady. "I am Samuel, the town's preacher. We offer hospitality to all who seek it." The stranger stopped, his dark eyes meeting Samuel's. He nodded curtly but said nothing. The silence stretched, broken only by the creaking of the coffin as it settled on the dusty ground. "You are welcome to stay," Samuel continued, gesturing towards the small inn at the edge of town. "We have food and shelter. Perhaps you would tell us your name." The stranger hesitated, then spoke, his voice raspy and low. "Call me Cain." He offered no further explanation, no apology for his silence. His gaze flickered towards the coffin, then back to Samuel, a silent warning in his eyes. Samuel knew that pressing him would be futile, at least for now. He extended a hand. "Cain, welcome to Harmony. May you find peace here." Even as he spoke the words, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that peace was the one thing Cain had not brought with him. The whispers started almost immediately. As Cain settled into a room at the inn, the townsfolk buzzed with speculation. What was in the coffin? Was it a body, treasure, some dark relic of a forgotten age? Old Maggie, who ran the general store, swore she saw Cain oiling a gun under his coat. Thomas, the blacksmith, claimed the coffin was made of ironwood, the strongest wood known, and reinforced with bands of steel. Even the children traded stories, their imaginations running wild with tales of monsters and curses. Samuel tried to calm their fears, reminding them of their commitment to peace and understanding. But even he found himself drawn into the mystery. He watched Cain from afar, noticing the way he moved, always alert, always watchful. He saw the haunted look in his eyes, the deep lines etched by pain and regret. The coffin remained an enigma, a constant, silent presence that seemed to radiate a dark energy. It sat in Cain's room, a heavy weight on the collective consciousness of Harmony, fueling the growing unease and suspicion. The peaceful town was now a cauldron of whispered rumors and fearful glances, all focused on the stranger and the secret he guarded. Samuel found himself unable to sleep. The image of Cain's haunted eyes kept flashing in his mind. He tossed and turned, the whispers of the town amplifying in his head. He rose and walked to his study, seeking solace in scripture. But even the familiar words offered no comfort. Instead, fragmented images flooded his thoughts. A younger Cain, face clean of scars, but eyes burning with a cold fury. A battlefield strewn with bodies, the glint of steel under a blood-red sky. These weren't memories of his own. They felt borrowed, as if Cain's past was somehow leaking into his mind. He saw Cain leading a band of men, their faces grim and hardened. He saw Cain betraying someone, a look of anguish flashing across his face before being replaced by a mask of cold indifference. He saw Cain burying something small under a gnarled oak tree. The visions were fleeting, disjointed, but they painted a disturbing picture of a man steeped in violence and regret, a man desperately trying to outrun his past. The weight of these visions settled heavily on Samuel's soul, confirming his deepest fears. Cain was not who he seemed, and the coffin held more than just secrets. It held the key to a darkness that threatened to consume harmony. 3 days passed, each one heavier than the last. The tension in harmony was a taut string ready to snap. Then on the 4th day the riders came. They appeared on the horizon like a dark stain, a group of 10 men, their faces hidden behind bandanas, their eyes cold and merciless. They rode hard, their horses kicking up dust devils that mirrored the chaos they brought with them. The leader, a hulking figure with a scarred face and a voice like gravel, reined in his horse in front of the inn. "Cain," he bellowed, his voice echoing through the town. "We know you're here. Come out, Cain, and face what's coming to you." The townsfolk scattered, their faces etched with terror. Samuel stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "What do you want?" The leader sneered. "We want Cain. He stole something from us, something precious, and we're here to take it back, one way or another." He spat on the ground, his eyes fixed on the inn. "Tell him to come out, preacher, or harmony will pay the price." The threat hung in the air, a dark omen for the peaceful town. The showdown had begun. Samuel raised his hands, a plea for peace. "Violence is not the answer," he said, his voice ringing with conviction, despite the fear gnawing at his insides. "We can talk this through. There is always another way." The leader laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Talk. Cain doesn't understand talk. He only understands taking what he wants, and we're going to show him what happens when you steal from the devil's own." He gestured to his men who fanned out, surrounding the town square. "We're not leaving without Cain and what he took, so preacher, step aside. This doesn't have to involve you or your peaceful little town." Samuel stood his ground, his eyes filled with determination. "I cannot allow you to bring violence into harmony. This is a place of peace. I will not stand by and watch you destroy it." He knew he was facing a force he couldn't reason with, but he had to try. He had to protect his people, even if it meant standing against overwhelming odds. The fate of harmony, and perhaps even Cain's soul, rested on his shoulders. He took a deep breath and prepared to face the storm. Suddenly, the door to the inn creaked open, and Cain emerged. He stood silhouetted against the dim light, his face unreadable. He looked at Samuel, a flicker of something that might have been gratitude in his eyes. Then he turned his gaze to the gang leader. "Clarence," Cain said, his voice low but steady, "I should have known you'd come crawling." Clarence's eyes narrowed. "You thought you could run, Cain. You thought you could hide. You stole from us, and you're going to pay." "I took what was mine," Cain replied, his voice hardening, "and I won't let you have it back." "Then harmony will burn," Clarence snarled. "We'll kill everyone in this town until you hand over what you stole." He raised his hand, signaling his men to advance. "Now, Cain, make your choice, your life or theirs." Cain looked at the terrified faces of the townsfolk, then back at Clarence. He knew what he had to do. "I won't let you hurt them," he said, his voice filled with grim determination. "I'll fight you, Clarence, but I won't let you touch this town." He knew this decision meant abandoning his hope for peace, but he couldn't stand by and watch innocent people suffer. The past he tried so hard to bury had finally caught up to him. Cain turned back to the coffin, his movements suddenly purposeful. He knelt beside it and produced a small, ornate key from around his neck. The lock clicked open, the sound echoing in the tense silence. He threw back the heavy lid, revealing not a body, not treasure, but a cache of weapons. Rifles, shotguns, revolvers, all meticulously cleaned and oiled, lay nestled within. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Samuel stared in disbelief. Cain had brought the very thing Harmony had sworn to reject. Cain ignored their reactions. He grabbed a rifle, his movements fluid and practiced, a stark contrast to his quiet demeanor. "I tried to leave this life behind," he said, his voice grim, "but some things just won't let you go." He looked at Samuel, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I know this goes against everything you believe in, preacher, but these people are going to die if we don't fight back." He began distributing the weapons, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. "Anyone who knows how to use one of these, take it. We're going to defend Harmony." The coffin, once a symbol of mystery and dread, was now a beacon of grim necessity. The pacifist town was about to become a battlefield. Samuel watched in stunned silence as the weapons were distributed. His heart wrestled with his beliefs. Could he, in good conscience, condone violence even in self-defense? He looked at the faces of his flock, their fear warring with a newfound resolve. Some he knew had lost loved ones to violence in the past. Others had never held a weapon in their lives. He saw old Martha, her hands trembling as she accepted a shotgun. He saw young Thomas, the blacksmith, his eyes shining with a grim determination as he hefted a rifle. He saw Sarah, a young mother, clutching a revolver, her face pale but resolute. They were ready to fight for their home, for their families, for their way of life. Clarence, seeing the town arming itself, roared with fury. "Kill them all," he screamed, and the gang charged. Samuel closed his eyes for a moment, offering a silent prayer. Then he opened them, his gaze hardening. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't wield a weapon, but he could offer guidance, support, and a moral compass in the storm that was about to break. He stepped forward, his voice ringing out above the chaos. "Remember who you are, remember what we stand for, defend Harmony, but do not let hatred consume you." The battle for Harmony had begun. The pacifist preacher had chosen his side. The first shots rang out, shattering the silence that had defined Harmony for so long. Cain, with a rifle in hand, moved with a speed and precision that belied his earlier quietness. He directed the townsfolk, showing them how to take cover, how to aim, how to reload. Old Martha, surprisingly steady, took down a rider with a single shot. Young Thomas, emboldened by adrenaline, provided cover fire. Even Sarah, the young mother, managed to wound an attacker. The townsfolk, armed and determined, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. They were farmers, blacksmiths, shopkeepers, not soldiers, but they were defending their home, their families, their way of life. They fought for Harmony. Cain moved through the chaos like a ghost, his scars gleaming in the sunlight. He was a whirlwind of controlled violence, a stark contrast to the peaceful ideals of the town he was defending. He took down rider after rider, his movements precise and deadly. He was a man reborn, embracing the skills he had tried so hard to bury. Samuel watched, his heart aching with each gunshot, each cry of pain. But he also saw the courage in his people, the unwavering determination to protect their home. He knew he had made the right choice. He had to stand with them, even in the face of violence. He moved among the wounded, offering comfort and prayers, a beacon of hope in the midst of the storm. The battle raged on, a brutal clash between peace and violence, between the past and the present, with the fate of Harmony hanging in the balance. The battle raged, the sun beating down on the chaotic scene. The air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Men fell on both sides, their cries of pain mingling with the sharp reports of gunfire. The tide of the battle shifted back and forth, neither side gaining a clear advantage. Cain and Clarence finally met in the center of town, their eyes locked in a deadly stare. "It's over, Cain," Clarence snarled, his face contorted with rage. "You can't win." "This isn't about winning, Clarence," Cain replied, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "It's about protecting these people." "Protecting them from what? From yourself," Clarence spat. "You brought this to them, Cain. You can't run from who you are." "I'm not running anymore," Cain said, his hand tightening on his rifle. "I'm standing my ground." He knew that this confrontation was inevitable, a final reckoning with his past. He was no longer the man he once was, but he couldn't escape the consequences of his actions. He had to face Clarence not just for himself, but for Harmony. The final showdown was about to begin. The fate of the town and Cain's soul hung in the balance. "What did I steal, Clarence?" Cain asked, his voice echoing in the sudden lull in the fighting. "Tell them what I stole." Clarence hesitated, his face darkening. You know damn well what you stole, Kane. You stole our future. I stole the gold, yes, Kane admitted. But why did I steal it, Clarence? Tell them why. Clarence spat on the ground. You betrayed us. You were supposed to be loyal. Loyal to what? To murder? To robbery? To terrorizing innocent people? Kane's voice rose with each question. I was loyal to you once, Clarence, but then I saw what you truly were, and I couldn't be a part of it anymore. He continued, the gold wasn't yours, Clarence. It was stolen from the people you preyed on. I took it to give it back to make amends for what I had done. Samuel watched, his eyes wide with understanding. Kane wasn't just trying to protect Harmony, he was trying to atone for his past sins. He was trying to become a better man. The truth hung in the air, a revelation that shifted the perspective of the entire town. Kane's confession changed everything. Clarence's face twisted with fury. Lies, all lies, you were always a coward, Kane, hiding behind your pretty words and your newfound conscience. He raised his rifle, but words won't save you now. Samuel stepped forward, placing himself between Kane and Clarence. Enough, he cried, his voice filled with righteous anger. There has been enough bloodshed. Clarence, listen to what Kane is saying. There is still time to turn away from this path of violence. Clarence sneered. You think words can stop me, preacher? You think your fairy tales can change anything? He leveled his rifle at Samuel. Step aside, old man, this doesn't concern you. Kane pushed Samuel out of the way, his face grim. This is between me and you, Clarence, leave them out of it. He dropped his rifle, his hands empty. I'm not going to fight you anymore, Clarence. I'm done with violence. Clarence laughed, a harsh, triumphant sound. Then you're a fool, Kane, a dead fool. He pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the town. Kane crumpled to the ground, clutching his chest. Samuel rushed to his side, his hands trembling as he examined the wound. Clarence, momentarily stunned, stood frozen, his rifle still smoking. A wave of fury washed over Samuel, a rage he had never felt before. He looked at Clarence, his eyes blazing with righteous anger. He saw not a man, but a monster, a destroyer of peace, a corrupter of souls. You will pay for this, Samuel said, his voice low and dangerous. He didn't reach for a weapon, he didn't need one. He had something far more powerful, the unwavering faith of his people. He stood tall, his presence radiating an aura of authority that silenced the remaining gang members. Harmony will not be broken by your violence, he declared, his voice ringing with conviction. We will not succumb to hatred. We will rise above this. He turned to the townsfolk, his eyes filled with compassion. Tend to the wounded, he said. Help those in need. Show them that even in the face of death, love and compassion can prevail. Then he looked back at Clarence, his gaze unwavering. Your reign of terror ends here, Clarence. You may have wounded Kane, but you have awakened something far more powerful in Harmony, and we will not be silenced. Samuel has found his voice. The showdown is far from over. But as Clarence moved to finish Kane off, a figure rose behind him. It was Martha, the old woman, her face set with grim determination. She raised her shotgun and fired, hitting Clarence in the shoulder. He staggered back, his face contorted with pain and surprise. The remaining townsfolk, emboldened by Samuel's words and Martha's courage, renewed their attack. They fought with a renewed ferocity, their fear replaced by a righteous anger. They were no longer just defending their homes, they were fighting for their future. Kane, despite his wound, struggled to his feet. He saw Clarence, wounded but still dangerous, trying to rally his men. He knew he had to stop him. He grabbed a knife from his boot, his movements slow but deliberate. He moved towards Clarence, his eyes locked on his target. Samuel, seeing what Kane was about to do, rushed to his side. No, Kane, he cried. Don't let hatred consume you. Kane stopped, his hand trembling. He looked at Samuel, his eyes filled with pain and regret. Then he looked at Clarence, his face a mask of hatred. He hesitated, then slowly lowered the knife. He had to choose revenge or redemption. His decision would determine the fate of Harmony. The battle would end soon. Clarence, seeing the hesitation in Kane's eyes, lunged forward, his knife raised. But before he could strike, a figure stepped in front of Kane. It was Samuel. He raised his hand, stopping Clarence in his tracks. Enough, Samuel said, his voice filled with a quiet authority. This ends now. He looked at Clarence, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and disappointment. You have chosen a path of violence, Clarence, and I cannot allow you to continue down that path. He then spoke to the townsfolk. Take him, bind him, we will decide his fate together. The townsfolk, their faces grim but resolute, moved forward and disarmed Clarence, binding his hands behind his back. The remaining gang members, seeing their leader defeated, surrendered. The battle was over. Harmony was safe, but the cost had been high. The town was scarred both physically and emotionally. The innocence they had once possessed was gone, replaced by a hard-won understanding of the darkness that lurked in the world. They would never be the same. The fight had changed them. In the days that followed, Harmony began to rebuild. The wounded were cared for, the dead were mourned, and the town slowly began to heal. The gold that Cain had stolen was returned to its rightful owners, bringing a measure of closure to his past. Cain recovered from his wound, his body healing but his spirit still scarred. He spent his days helping the townsfolk rebuild, his quiet strength a source of comfort and support. He was no longer the silent, brooding stranger who had arrived dragging a coffin behind him. He was now a part of Harmony, a man who had found a measure of redemption in protecting the town. One evening, as the sun set over the desert, Samuel found Cain sitting by the coffin, his face etched with contemplation. "You've found peace here, haven't you, Cain?" Samuel asked. Cain looked up, his eyes filled with a quiet sadness. "I've found something I never thought I could find," he said. "But I don't know if I can stay. I'm still a reminder of the violence that came here. I'm not sure Harmony can ever truly heal with me around." The choice was his, and the burden of that choice weighed heavily on his soul. Should he stay and help build, or should he move on? The decision was difficult. The future was murky. Samuel looked at Cain, his heart filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. He knew that Cain's past would always haunt him, that he would never truly be free from the darkness that had once consumed him. But he also knew that Cain had found a measure of peace in Harmony, that he had proven himself worthy of redemption. "The choice is yours, Cain," Samuel said. "But know this, you are welcome here. You have shown us that even the most broken among us can find the strength to do good. You have taught us that even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail." He paused, reflecting on the events that had transpired. "I have also learned something," Samuel continued. "I have learned that peace is not always the absence of violence. Sometimes it requires difficult choices, sacrifices, and even the willingness to fight for what you believe in. I have also learned that even in the most peaceful hearts, the capacity for violence exists. It is how we control that capacity that defines us." In the end, Cain decided to stay. He knew that his past would always be a part of him, but he also knew that he had a future in Harmony, a future filled with hope and purpose. He would help rebuild the town, not just physically, but spiritually. He would show them that even a man marked by violence could find redemption. Harmony would never be the same, but it would be stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. And Samuel, the pacifist preacher, would lead them forward, guided by his unwavering faith and his newfound understanding of the complexities of peace. Harmony and Cain were safe.